Coffee with Jeff. Coffee with Jeff. Coffee with Jeff. Coffee.
Well, hello there. My name is Jeff. I'm so glad you could be with me today. I really am. So I know I haven't done a Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode in like a month, and I apologize, but you know, it's spring going into summer, and well, that means stuff. Lots of stuff. Every weekend. We got this to do Friday, we're going over here Saturday, we got a Cubs game to go to, we got a barbecue to go to. It seemed like every weekend, the last two especially, were just packed with stuff. Luckily, I had a couple documentaries I was working on that were almost finished, so I was able to publish those last week and the week before. But now I'm back doing a Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode, and I hope I'll keep doing it. So today I'm going to talk about a film that was first shown on Mystery Science Theater 3000 on July 4th, 1992. It was the American science fiction horror film Time Walker, or as it was known on Mystery Science Theater 3000, Being from Another Planet. It was directed by Tom Kennedy and stars Ben Murphy, Nina Axelrod, Kevin Brophy, James Karen, and many other wonderful people. This is the episode in which Joel and the Bots play 20 questions using every movie cliche tagline ever written. The Mads come up with a new product called Tragic Moment Figurines, little statues that depict tragic moments in a child's life. And Joel comes up with a Jack Palance impersonator kit. At first break, the Bots are dressed as mummies, and that leads to a conversation about Billy Mooney. Joel defends Billy against the Bots, who are making fun of this wonderful actor. At second break, the Bots host an old Halloween game in which a blindfolded person is scared by not really knowing what he's touching. But Joel turns things around in the end. Later, in an attempt to cheer up Tom and Crow, Joel and Gypsy start Joel's Rainy Day Fun sketch with the Hexfield Viewscreen Fun Time Hollow Clowns. But in the end, they all feel sort of empty. And they finish with TV Frank's Home Shopping Network, which features product inspired from the film in an attempt to trick Frank to bring down the satellite of love, and it almost works. For eons, they traveled the galaxy. For centuries, one was trapped in a pharaoh's tomb. Now he is free. Time Walker. Nothing can stop him, not even time. I have no problem with that poster, none at all, except for the fact it gives away like the first third of the movie. I mean, if you've read the poster, then you see the movie, once they find their sarcophagus, you're going to say, well, that mummy's an alien because I've read the poster, right? It gives it all away, and now you're just waiting for the characters to catch up. Anyway, what really impresses me about the poster is that there are no exclamation points. I mean, how often do you see that? Anyway, you know, I've got a lot to talk about when it comes to this film, because it sort of came together in an unusual way. And it all starts with two men. The first is Dimitri Villard. Now, I have no idea when Dimitri was born, when he died, if he's still alive, nothing. All I know is he was a Wall Street man who decided he wanted to make movies. I'd rather make movies, he said. It's so hard to break in. The only way to do it is just go out there and make a movie. And so that's what he did, and hey, we're all better for it, right? I put out the word that I was looking for a low-budget script, noted first-time producer Dimitri Villard, on how Time Walker came to be. I read dozens and dozens, then one day I read Time Walker, which was then called Pharaoh, which had been developed by Jason Gordon. It struck me as a completely original and different idea from the usual slasher horror type pictures. I made a deal with Jason and raised the money from various sources. Now, who was Jason Williams? Jason was born in 1947 and might still be alive today. In fact, I think he is. And he was an actor at the time. He starred in such classic motion pictures as Flesh Gordon from 1947, Alice in Wonderland, an X-rated musical fantasy from 1976, The Great American Girl Robbery from 1979, and The Cheerleader's Wild Weekend from 1980. Now, I have to admit, I haven't seen any of Jason's work, but you know, this was at a time where X-rated movies used to play in theaters right next to mainstream movies, and in fact, they would be even advertised in the paper right next to mainstream movies. It was a different world back then, right? Anyway, in his autobiography, he wrote, As I knocked around a while, I crossed paths with Dimitri Villard, a producer and later a writer as well, looking to do a movie. He had some investment money from a group in the Middle East and was sure he wanted to work in science fiction. I came up with an idea I originally called The Tomb of the Mummy. It was about alien visitors thousands of years ago. One of them gets sick and the rest of the crew leaves him behind in ancient Egypt, where he is wrapped in a stasis like a mummy. Now the financing he talked about might have been from a Saudi Arabian arms dealer named Adnan Khashoggi, who some people have called the richest man in the world. Actually, that's what's been reported, but Dimitri Villard said, "I am not in a position to discuss whether Mr. Khashoggi is involved in this or other projects." They were looking for more money, and they went to all the big studios and were turned down because apparently at the time Steven Spielberg was getting ready to film E.T. the Extraterrestrial, and they thought the two scripts were a bit alike. I don't see it, but that's what I've read. So they turned to the one and only Roger Corman, who put up the rest of the money. But the entire budget for this film was only $750,000, which is not very much money at all. Now, it should be noted that Dimitri Villard would go on to produce such films as Once Bitten in 1985, Flight of the Navigator in '86, and Frankenstein's General Hospital in 1988. Tom Kennedy was the director of the film. Tom lived from 1948 to 2011 and was best known as an American film trailer producer. He created trailers for such films as The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, The Terminator, and many, many more. Time Walker was the only feature film he ever directed, and from the reviews I read, well, that you could probably understand why. So why don't we look at a few of the actors from this film? We have Ben Murphy, who plays Professor Douglas McCadden. Ben was born Benjamin Edward Castleberry Jr. in 1942 and is still alive today. He adopted the last name Murray at 7 years old when his mother remarried. He had a 40-plus year career, mostly in TV. His biggest claim to fame was the Western television series Alias Smith and Jones, which was on for 3 seasons between 1971 and 1973. He also starred in a series called Gemini Man, in which he played a motorcycle-riding secret agent whom radiation during an underwater explosion rendered him invisible. Needless to say, this show only lasted 11 episodes. Nina Axelrod plays Susan Fuller. Nina Heather Axelrod was born in 1955 and had a short acting career from 1978 to 1991, with only a dozen or so credits. She is best known for roles in the films Motel Hell from 1980 and Critters 3 from 1991. After that, she became a casting director. Kevin Brophy plays Peter Sharp. Kevin Michael Brophy lived from 1953 to 2024. Early in his career, he starred in the series Lucan, but that show only lasted 12 episodes. After that, he did many TV guest shots and also appeared in films that no one ever heard of. Some of his films were Hell Night from 1981, The Seduction from 1982, and Easy Wheels from 1989. The biggest name in the film was James Karen, who plays Dr. Wendell J. Rossmore. He was born Jacob Karnofsky and lived from 1923 to 2018. He was the kind of actor I really appreciate, carving out a 70-year career in both TV and films. He pops up all the time. He was the guy in Poltergeist who moved the headstones but didn't move the bodies, and that caused all the trouble. He actually made the film Poltergeist the same year he made this, so hey, sometimes they're hits, sometimes they're not, right? Anyway, some of his other films include All the President's Men from '76, The China Syndrome from 1979, Wall Street from 1987, Piranha from 1995, Mulholland Drive from 2001, and many, many, many more, including a lot of television. Sam Chu Jr. plays Dr. Bruce Cenaro. Sam Chu Jr. was born in 1942. His claim to fame was playing both John F. Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy on television. His films include Fist from 1978 and Serial from 1980. He was also in 8 episodes of The Bionic Woman. Sad to say, but Time Walker might have been the highlight of his career. Shari Belafonte plays Linda Flores. She was born Shari Lynn Belafonte in 1954 and is, of course, the daughter of Harry Belafonte. She started off as a fashion model who turned to acting. Time Walker was one of her first films. Most of her career was on television, however, as she starred in the show Hotel from 1983 to 1988. And she's still acting today. So what is Time Walker? And yes, I'm going to be watching the original film, Time Walker, for this synopsis. We start out looking into space, Jupiter and the Earth from the moon, and then we zoom in on the Earth. And as the credits roll, we see Egypt, the Sphinx, a pyramid and such.
Earthquake!
There's an earthquake in which we don't get to see, probably for budgetary reasons. We cut to the inside of King Tutankhamun's tomb. This tomb was actually discovered in 1922, but I guess there could still be secrets that only an earthquake could uncover. That's because Professor Douglas McCadden from the California University of Sciences discovered a hidden chamber with a sarcophagus. He brings the find back to his college and his students help him unload it while Linda takes some pictures. And so research begins on the sarcophagus, and you know, I have my doubts that it would be conducted in this way, but hey, what do I know? These clever researchers discover that the mummy is covered with some sort of green slime.
What is that green stuff? Mold?
Not really sure. Michael, why don't you collect some samples?
They decide to x-ray the mummy, but isn't some sort of protection, lead shielding or something usually required? Maybe not, but no one bothers to check the settings.
My God, Sharp!
One of those damn kids must have knocked it off the setting.
You've been x-raying this mummy with 10 times the normal dose.
Professor, I would say that you're responsible here. They're your students, right? But while developing the plates, Peter notices something that might be jewels, which he then steals. So not only do we know that Peter isn't a very responsible x-ray technician, but he's also a thief. He even re-x-rays the mummy to cover up his crime. Meanwhile, the professor is busy deciphering a scroll with Susie, his assistant. One thing I've learned from movies is that every handsome college professor is having an affair with one of his pretty young students. Also, what's the deal with the lights? Is the college too poor to afford electricity? But all this x-raying, well, it seems to have awakened the mummy. And do you think that maybe he wants those 5 stones back? Even the mold is, well, starting to grow. No, don't touch that. Too late. And oh yes, what would a college film be without an old, cranky, bureaucratic head worrying about the reputation of the school?
Melrose and I tried to warn you about this.
McCadden, you know, I really resent being blamed for the clumsiness of one of your students. Now, if you're unwilling to accept the responsibility for this project, perhaps we ought to find someone who will.
It turns out that the unveiling of the mummy doesn't go as planned because there's no mummy. Now, whatever this thing is, we know that it has eyes that can only see green. So, of course, the school heads aren't too happy with the situation, and they question Peter to see if he's responsible. I have a question. Why wasn't the archaeological find of the century kept somewhere safe? Maybe under lock and key, maybe guarded, instead of sitting in the middle of a classroom? And we have our first death, a janitor.
Hey, what's going on back here?
I'll jump ahead a bit. A test reveals that this thing is nothing like anything known on Earth. It's probably an alien. And we have a totally unnecessary boob shot because, hey, why not? Well, this is the 1980s.
What were you doing?
Shari, honey, I came over to see you.
Then what were you staring at her for, bozo?
Ow, I don't know. Shari,
I don't believe you.
Listen. Shari, will you listen for a minute?
Now, if I were her, I probably wouldn't be so upset about knowing her boyfriend was looking at another woman, more so that he's a peeping Tom, violating another person's privacy. Anyway, to make it up to her, he gives her a present, but he first demands a kiss. And boy, am I hoping that the mummy gets to this guy. I guess it could have been worse. He could have demanded any number of sexual favors. Anyway, his gift is one of those crystals.
I found it in an old box.
Now, we haven't seen Linda Flores, the photographer, for a while. I guess she's also the local nighttime DJ?
So this is where you hide out when you're not taking my picture, huh?
Cheapest rent on campus, right next to the reactor.
And all this bad press. What to do, what to do.
Today here at the California Institute of the Sciences, they held a press conference to show off their new mummy. But when they opened the coffin, guess what?
It wasn't a mummy. It was a daddy.
Oh, my God.
No, it wasn't anything. The coffin was empty.
Empty.
As a tomb.
The crystals get slowly spread around, mainly to beautiful young women because, sexy ladies in danger equals higher ticket sales. Or at least that's what I'm assuming was the writer's thinking. But what's this? The crystal is beginning to glow. And here comes Mr. Green Vision. And so one of the stones is back with its owner in one of the most unexciting deaths in cinema history. Oh, but I guess it wasn't a death. So we have a few plot lines going on here. The mummy wants the crystals. There's the boy with the green slime infection. The college heads are worried about how this reflects on the school. And Professor Doug is trying to figure it all out. Captain Willoughby, probably the most dumbest person in all of law enforcement, can't understand why this boy who is in total shock won't talk.
I'm trying to get a description, but he won't cooperate.
And we get this weird scene. The mummy messes with electricity and suddenly all the payphones start ringing. It's probably one of those writer room things where somebody said, wouldn't it be cool if, even if it made no sense. And the professor finally figures it out that King Tut had met aliens.
All-knowing Tutankhamun reached out to touch the weary traveler and was sorely burned.
And you know, the cause of the death of the boy king has long been debated. But now we know it was a fungus from space that consumed Tut's body, and without a body, the Egyptians entombed the alien rather than King Tut. And the college heads are still upset, even more so because the students are planning an Egyptian-themed party.
And look at this. Where is my mummy? A fraternity party Saturday night. Please wear costumes. That's all we need.
And apparently X-rays makes this whole thing worse.
Tell her not to X-ray Ellen Winters. Do not X-ray Ellen Winters.
Too late, they X-rayed Alan Winters. Meanwhile, that night, outside the big party...
Conehead.
Did he just call that guy Conehead? You know, I remember that being funny on SNL like 50 years ago, but I never remember it being used as an insult. So we get about 5 minutes of a costume party with the occasional mummy vision, without much really happening until this death. Hey! Not the most exciting death, but whatever. It was only the second one in the movie. And don't the others look like they're having so much fun? So much fun. And this dude, well, he has a theory.
He wasn't ready to unveil that mummy, so he had it stolen and hidden where he could work on it in private. And then when he's ready to find it and unveil it, he'll find it and come out a big hero.
Okay, he murdered one student and put 2 others in the hospital. Why exactly? You know, if these were the types of people running colleges back in the 1980s, no wonder the world is in the shape it is today. And the professor and his girlfriend Susie are attacked. But I guess it was only a dream. And we learn a little more about the bracelet.
Where's that coming from?
My bracelet. I know, my brother used to build radios, and I think he had diagrams lying around that look like that.
So visitors from another world use the same diagrams for their electronics that the people of Earth do? Good to know. Since Susie has one of those stones, the mummy goes after her. And it takes forever. Somehow the mummy gets into the elevator shaft and stops the elevator between floors, and yeah, I don't get it either. Susie winds up on the roof. This happens in film so often, doesn't it? The person being chased goes up on the roof and it makes no sense. Of course, she had been taking the bracelet on and off without a problem, but now it's stuck. The visitor rips it off just before she falls. But not to her death.
Lieutenant Plummer, you don't really still believe this is a fraternity joke, do you?
That was the third. Just a couple more. And this stuff happens.
Ow!
To make a long story short, the professor and his friends slowly figure out that the mummy needs the crystals to, I guess, phone home. They find the original X-rays, so now they know that there are 5 crystals, and that takes them back to Peter, the thief X-ray technician.
What about these? Ellen Winters and Bill Vogel are dead because of those crystals.
And Susie Fuller's in the hospital.
We cut to another young lady who, of course, is taking a shower. In a shocking development, the filmmakers show a lot of restraint when it comes to showing her naked. It must have not been in the budget. Anyway, she's attacked but not killed. And so that's the 4th stone for the mummy. He's getting there, folks. Somehow, however, they figure out the mummy needs a power source, and that leads him to this power plant. And this guy shows up and he's still being a dick.
Oh, come off it, Professor.
Don't you realize what has been going on here?
Yes, as a matter of fact, you've been getting away with murder. Well, the game is over. And as soon as I call Lieutenant Plummer, you'll be on your way to jail and I'll have what I deserve.
I don't know what it is that Bruce thinks he deserves, but then the mummy shows up and he puts the last crystal into place. Finally, we get to see what that thing actually looks like, and it's not all that exciting. In an effort to make the scene, well, a little exciting, this happens.
Shoot it! No!
Of course, this is only a movie, so a bullet to the arm means nothing. You can just hold your hand over the wound and you'll be fine. Or maybe this alien has that E.T. healing thing, but we'll never know because it and the professor just vanish.
The crystal! No!
And Bruce gets what's coming to him, though I don't think that's what he had in mind. The best I can say about this is, well, it was an ending. And what happened to the professor and the mummy? Well, we'll find out in Time Walker 2. No, we won't, because there was never a Time Walker 2. Now, I read somewhere that they were hoping for a TV series, but I'm not sure if that's true. More than likely, they just wanted to make a whole series of films, but it never happened. And you know, would-be filmmakers out there, you youngsters out there, never announce a sequel till you're sure you have a hit. You know, one good movie, and then if it's a hit, there's time to come up with a sequel. You'll figure it out. And I know I've mentioned this before, and I'll say it again, but you know, if you've got $750,000 to make a movie, maybe put a little of that money aside to hire a professional screenwriter. I know you've got a softcore porn star to write your script, and that might seem good enough, but you know, just have somebody else who's a professional look it over and give you some pointers. You could have cut James Karen out of this, and you would have been fine without that character, and the money you saved, you probably could have hired a professional screenwriter. the music for this movie was done by Richard Band, and he's part of the Band movie empire. You see, Richard is the son of Albert Band and brother of Charles Band. Albert and Charles would become producers and directors, creating such films as the Trancers, Dollman, Demonic Toys, Ghoulies, Puppet Master, and Evil Bong franchises, along with films like Laser Blast from 1978, Dr. Mordred from 1992, Prehysteria from 1993, and a ton of others most you've probably never heard of, because Charles Band just cranks out the films either as a producer or director, one after another. As far as Richard, well, he mostly does music for his brother's films, but besides those, he also did music for the TV shows Walker, Texas Ranger, and Stargate SG-1. Now, while Dad passed away a few years ago, Charles and Richard are still at it today. Now, as far as the Mystery Science Theater 3000 version, you can tell right away from the opening credits, this is another Film Ventures International movie with their own unique title sequence added. Now, for today's obscure reference, we have this.
I'm Leonard Nimoy, in search of my career.
From 1976 to 1982, In Search Of was a weekly television show that was devoted to mysterious phenomenon. It dealt with everything from UFOs, Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, Jack the Ripper, Amelia Earhart, Jimmy Hoffa, D.B. Cooper, the Mary Celeste, and tons of other things that were mysterious. It was hosted by Leonard Nimoy, who finally found work after Star Trek was canceled. And then there's this one.
Did ancient astronauts leave this rock? Read the book.
There was a 1969 book called Chariot of the Gods that promoted the idea that aliens helped build the pyramids in Egypt and all that kind of silly nonsense, and it was very popular, and that line was from a commercial about the book. Now, the original film Time Walker clocks in at about 73 minutes, and the version that was shown on Mystery Science Theater 3000, Being from Another Planet, clocks in at about 73 minutes, so about 10 minutes were cut. I don't know exactly what was cut, except for, of course, the topless scene, which they didn't put on TV. Anyway, if you're interested in seeing the original version, I believe it's on YouTube, though I'm not 100% sure. But now, why don't we watch the best 2 minutes of that film as it was shown on Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Oh, you know, being from another planet, I didn't have a lot to do with this film.
So far, this movie looks like a dramatization of a movie. Guests of King Tut stay at the California Institute of the Sciences.
Ready for the x-ray, sir.
Oh, my son, the idiot.
Now, was I Smith or Jones? I can't remember. It's been so long. Man, if we could see that, I bet it'd be real scary.
I don't want to.
Hey, what's going on back here?
Just eating a nutritious breakfast, Mom.
Well, there's no emotional attachment to me. I can die.
Hi, I'm Jamie Reynolds.
And so am I. This is tonight's edition of
To Whom It May Concern.
Give it back! Give it back, you sons of...
Don't tell Mom the babysitter's hot.
No, it's that thing again. The thing that's been driving the plot to nowhere.
Are you suggesting that our fungus
is among
the
us?
same disease?
Stanley?
You want to help me do things right?
Well, it's a CBS mystery movie.
There wasn't a CBS mystery movie.
I know, but you won't let us say NBC mystery movie.
Willard, no!
Tear him up!
Meanwhile, at the Kennedy compound...
Let the sun shine. Shaft. Elevator shaft.
Don't do that!
Boring, boring, really boring, boring music. Really boring music. Ladies and gentlemen, Shari Belafonte Harper. You know, I recall reading in Video Watchdog that this sequence set the film $50 over budget.
Folks, I apologize. I had no control over the content of this film.
See, we just gotta work together.
Kid power!
This movie sucks.
This movie sucks. This movie sucks.
Well, I don't know.
This movie, you know, I think this is the worst movie we've ever seen.
Well, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it, and hopefully I'll be back in 2 weeks with another Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode. We'll be watching one of my favorite B films, Attack of the Giant Leeches from 1959. And I mean it, I really like this movie. It was produced by Gene Corman, brother of Roger, and it stars the sexy Yvette Vickers, somebody who I'm a big fan of. So there's going to be a lot to talk about there, so I hope you will join me. Anyway, I want you to take care, stay healthy, and don't go changing. Unless you're a jerk, then change. All right, bye-bye.